Hi, everyone. Welcome to an evening edition of the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm, of course, your host, TJ West. So, I wanted to, before I sign off for this evening and go to bed, I want to talk really briefly about the new Netflix show, The Four Seasons, which is a really sweet little dramedy. I mean, it's mostly comedy, but there's some drama in there too. And I wanted to talk about it for a couple of key reasons, both because it has gay stuff and also I think it's really just a lovely portrait of like middle aged life and the things that happen in middle age. So, in case you haven't seen it, it's actually based on a 1980s film directed by Alan Alda. And at the core of the story are three couples. There's Steve Carell and Carrie Kenny Silver, who play Nick and Anne, who are a middle-aged married couple. There's Tina Fey and Will Forte as Kate and Jack, and then there's Coleman Domingo and Marco Calvani as Danny and Claude, also they're a gay couple. So you have the three couples. Sorry, I had to look to make sure I got the names right. And when the story begins, they're all sort of gathered at Nick and Annie's house, but as it turns out, Nick is planning on leaving Annie, which he then does. Gets a divorce, has a relationship with Erica Henningsen, who plays Ginny, and then causes all sorts of drama and strife, and obviously kind of creates fissures within the friend group as they all kind of grapple with Nick's midlife crisis and what that means for them. And so I think what I really enjoyed about the film and what made me feel some stuff is, I was talking earlier about writing stories with middle-aged protagonists, and obviously given the cast that we're talking about, everyone is in their, late middle age. I mean, most of the cast members are in their 50s, with the exception of Marco Calvani, who's like mid 40s. He's like born in 1980, so a few years older than me. So, they're all kind of grappling with what does marriage and what does life look like as a couple when you're in your 50s. Like, you have certain assumptions of how life is going to work out, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think one of the things the show does extremely well is navigate that sort of tension, not just about Nick and Annie, although that's obviously sort of the precipitating crisis, but also the way the other characters have to contend with a married life that doesn't always match up to what they imagined. So obviously, since I'm a big old homosexual and I love gay characters and I love Coleman Domingo and I love Marco Calvani, I want to focus for most of this bite-sized review on those two characters because, as a gay man, I mean, they're an interracial couple and they're in middle age and they have very different approaches to life, whereas Danny is very matter of fact, very blunt, very sort of non romantic in a way. He's very much a cynic and a realist, which is very different, obviously, than Claude, who is, he's Italian, from Italy, and so has a sort of exuberant, buoyant personality. If you want to get a sense that he's not dissimilar to me, which maybe why I identify with him so strongly. And so one of the sort of ongoing tensions there is about like Danny not wanting to take care of himself. He has, heart surgery at the beginning of the season, and, their ongoing conflict between like Claude's tendency to smother Danny with his affection and his care, and Danny is sort of wanting to exist. And that's a really interesting tension that I think we need to see more of in gay culture. Like, there are a lot of gay romances. I'm obviously writing them myself. And we also have a lot of, romantic films and all that sort of thing. But we need more romantic dramas that actually focus on what's life like as a married person. And I think one of the things that really strikes me about Danny and Claude is that they sort of have to figure out how do they make this work? Because they're married when the show begins, but they also have an open relationship. And so, there's a lot of complications that go into their life together. And, obviously the same thing is true of the other characters too, but they're straights and I don't care about them as much. So I kind of liked the way the show shows the way that middle-aged gay life is complicated, especially when you're two very different people, but you still love each other very dearly and you are in it for the long haul and you want to build this life and keep maintaining it. But how do you do that when you're so different personality-wise and whenever your experiences of aging are very different? And even whenever, like, there's a spoiler alert, so if you don't want to spoil, plug your ears. So Nick dies in one of the very last episodes, and, Claude tries to imbue that with meaning and that maybe he's going to like be reincarnated as a butterfly or that he's found freedom. Whereas, Danny is just like, it sucks. He's dead. Just let me be sad. And if you want to get an idea of what my partner and I are like when it comes to that stuff, that's very much how it's like. I'm obviously the Claude that's sort of like, let's find meaning or, let's look at this in a deeper way. Aaron is more just like, he's dead, let's just be sad. Like that's okay. And so, I really enjoyed it, and it helps that both Coleman Domingo and Marco Calvani are just so good on screen together. There's a real palpable chemistry you feel with these two actors, that, and I mean, Claude is truly like an absolute delight. I think that of all the characters I've seen in pop culture, he is very much in my mold. As he's sort of like, if you've ever seen The Birdcage, he's like Albert, the Nathan Lane character. So, I mean, like I said, I like that we get these portraits of what life can be like, and that, love and sex and all the sort of the complexities of gay life don't end just because you're in your 40s, or in Danny's case in your 50s. And bodies start to break down, and so that's one of the other realities that we have to deal with as aging people. And so I think that the Four Seasons is really quite an extraordinary show. I love the way that it sort of takes the bare bones of the original film and updates it for a modern sensibility, and sort of gives us this insight into just how messy life can be when you get to be older, and how, some of the things that you assume to be true are not, but some things also work out. So I guess it's the long and short of it is that I would recommend this show. I think that, obviously it's hilarious. How could it be otherwise when you have people like Tina Fey and Will Forte and Steve Carell? Like, there's a lot of humor, there's a lot of pathos. It's truly a dramedy in the best sense of the word, and I think it's one of those shows that really excels at keeping those two elements in like a nice balance, and that's a high praise for me. I think that many dramedies end up erring on one side or the other, but this one does really well with both. There were moments when I cried, there were moments when I laughed. We here at the Pisces Guide, we love those things. We love our feelings. And so I think that, if you're like me and you love your pop culture with a healthy dose of sadness and joy and all the other feelings in between, then the Four Seasons is the way to go. So that's all for tonight, I promise. No more thirst traps. Maybe tomorrow. But for tonight, I am all done. So thank you again for joining me for a great episode or in my opinion, great episode of the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. Go watch the Four Seasons. It's awesome. So anyway, that's all for tonight. I'm TJ, of course. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.